Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. It is bingo night, vaguely, because there seems to be nobody online yet for the bingo night people, which is fine because it's story time. Story time. Eventually, the webcam will turn on. Good job, webcam. You're doing great things. You're doing great things. I now need to turn off this screen. I'm going to be staring at my face the whole time, and that is awful. Alright, there we go. There we go. Alright. How is everybody doing tonight? We have a rousing crowd of six here to tell, or here to hear story time. Well, the others will just have to catch up on a VOD later, won't they? So, Sebring. I want to start all of this with there has never been a race that myself and Ducks have gone to that we prepared for less. We knew as of Daytona last year that we were going to skip Daytona this year and go to Sebring instead, but somehow, given that much time, we failed to plan for this event at all. And that's mostly due to the fact that just weird, crazy stuff has been going on. For Ducks, he's been working like crazy lately. I kind of usually... How do you word this? I lean on his ability to plan such things. Not only plan, but afford such things like hotels and trips and stuff like that. I usually am just kind of tagging along. But for Sebring, we knew the weeks leading up to this, there was no plan. Neither of us have gone to the Sebring 12-hour. I knew it was going to be tough trying to plan because everything I've heard about this particular event is that it is nuts. It is very different than any other sort of race that happens. If you don't know anything about Sebring, it's in Central Florida. Central South Florida. It's actually south central of Tampa, right in the middle of the state, way down the protrusion that is Florida. An area that I don't know a whole lot about, but I know a lot more about now. I have been there before. I did a chump car race with Damon years ago now, where I was working as a crewman. So I was there for 14 hours. I stayed at the hotel on the track, but I didn't really get to experience much of Sebring because I was working for most of the time. I was working on the car, just kind of stuck to the pits and that kind of stuff. But I could tell in that time, it's a very different facility than, say, Daytona, Road Atlanta, Barber, VIR, any of those kind of tracks. It's much older, obviously. This is the 65th running of the Sebring 12-hour, and basically the track has not changed a whole lot. The layout, they chicaned out some of the turns, but mostly this is the same layout, this is the same track, this is the same everything. There's no grandstand, there is no real garage access, there's no paddock area, stuff like that. They just line up their trucks outside, and that's where they make their special little garages, little makeshift garages. Corvette has that crazy bounce house thing. It's a big inflatable, huge. I got a little bit of video of it, a video clip of this thing. It's just this huge inflatable house that makes their garage. It's pretty cool. It's very interesting. But yeah, there's very little structure there. There's no town. There is no Sebring, Florida. There is woods. There's little towns around it, but essentially there is no town. like even Road Atlanta, which seems like it looks like it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's in a town. It's in an area with restaurants and that kind of stuff. There's nothing like that in Sebring. The hotel at the track is the only hotel that is around, and that one is reserved years in advance, and it's super expensive. It's very hoity-toity. It's for family of drivers and stuff like that. Yes, I need a mobile bouncy garage for sure. So, we all know, or race fans know, that the surface of Sebring is like super old and it's the bumpiest track you've ever seen. I can tell you, watching cars on it in person, it is insane watching the cars navigate it, because the bumps are just insane. The cars, they lunge around. We found one spot to look at it where the cars were like lurching off of bumps. Oh, Dux is here. Dux can give a lot of reference as to some of the stuff we're talking about here. So yeah, the track is definitely as it appears in like video or TV footage. It's very old and very bumpy, but it looks, every track that I've been to other than this one, when I see it from like the sidelines, it looks like the track that I know when I'm driving it. Oh, hey Goth. We might be starting a little bit late. Like a little bit late. But this one, like, as soon as we got in there and I saw the track, I could never, for the longest time, like, figure out what I'm looking at. Like, okay, I know this turn, but I have no idea where I'm at. And that's not aided by the fact that just getting into the track and navigating around the place is really strange, because there's no, it's not a track that is made for like tourists or guests. It's a track that exists, and they've made paths around, and people have had ideas as to like where people should be and where they shouldn't be, how to get them around, that kind of stuff. But it was never made to be like a spectator-friendly place. It is, of course, yes, super flat. There's just one crazy old-school bridge to get over the track and stuff like that. But yeah, the whole time, for the first 12 hours that we were there, that first day that we were there before the race, was all just, it was very confusing. But the first night we got there, it was Friday. We only got to catch the like last half of the Continental GT race. We didn't get to see any of the practice or anything like that. We got there pretty late. But the racing got done at around 5, and that's when Sebring happens. So Sebring is apparently, and I know I've always known this, it is a party that there happens to be a race at. There's not a race that there's some parties at. The party starts at 5 o'clock on Friday, and it does not stop until Sunday morning, is basically how it goes. Yeah, the bridge that I say is actually made out of steel plate, and it's like this and flat at the top. There's no curve. It's just like burp, burp. RVs can't get over it, stuff like that. It's real. It's one lane. It's very strange. It's very strange. So we were camping-ish. Slag and his brother had a tent, and hello to people rolling in. We're going over my thoughts on Sebring, the Sebring 12-hour that we just got back from. On Friday evening, we were sitting up, like, Slag and his brother's tent, and me and Dux were trying to figure out, you know, where we were gonna camp for the night. And I had already pretty much decided that I was going to sleep in the bed of his truck, which was awful, but not as awful as trying to sleep through the biggest redneck party I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was way more redneck than anything I've ever seen before. There's It is a bed, yeah. Um, there's just dudes in pickup trucks driving around, beer cans and beer bottles everywhere. As we were trying to find a place to park, like the only place we kind of found there, the first place we found, ended up being next to these drunken guys that ended up. They were going crazy. Like, they were all leaning on our car by the time we got back and stuff like this. And they were, you know, doing like the cornhole thing and stuff like that, yelling at each other, trying to get females to do things that drunken people would try to do. And that lasted right up until the point one of these redneck bros was running after one other of the redneck bros and just took the hardest fall I've ever seen a human take before. Like, he was running along, tripped over a chair, and instead of, you know, trying to brace for himself, he just holds his beer close to his chest and just, like, grabs himself and falls face first into the ground. I didn't realize at the time that it was not a beer bottle. I thought that it was. It was like a cup. If it had been a bottle, I'm pretty sure he would have had shards of beer bottle through his heart, is how hard he hit the ground. It was insane. And that is pretty much the general atmosphere there. That kind of people. There. That sounded awful. That kind of people. Slag, who somewhat enjoys that kind of culture, he's the kind of person that will go off into any group and get himself involved in it and be part of it. Of course he had to get involved in that. I don't have it on the computer, I don't think. But let's see if I can bring it up on my phone and see if you can see it. I don't want to draw on the picture. Let's skip Pack South and go to Daytona. Okay, there we go. You're not going to be able to see this. If you can, that's great, but it's going to take me a while. That is a guy sitting on a couch that's on fire drinking a beer. Oh, you can see it pretty well. That's pretty great. That's the kind of atmosphere it was. I posted on Discord the picture of just this whole area that's just wrecked. I mean, it was wrecked, and that was all over the place. And in the area where you park, there's like roads that connect it all. The whole time, until like 3 a.m., as I believe Ducks coined this term, as the douchenecks would do, they drove in their pickup trucks, thumping rap music or whatever. Mary Had a Little Lamb at points. Thumping that around with people in the bed of the pickup truck just doing laps around the area. There was one dude in a truck that literally did that the entire time. I don't think they ever watched the race. I don't think they slept. I think all they did was drive laps around the place, thumping music, getting drunk, and trying to pick up chicks. I hate to break it to you guys. I don't think a racetrack's probably the perfect place to be doing that, but it's Central Florida. Apparently, there's not a whole hell of a lot to do there. So that's what happens. Let's see, is there any other specific moments I can think of? Oh my god, I was gonna lose my shit at one point because I was finally trying to go to sleep, and don't make fun of the brodozers. And that's when the air horning starts, or the train horning. People just laying on their train horns or miscellaneous train horn type of things as loud and long as they possibly could. It didn't finally stop till about 3 a.m. That's when things finally started to settle. We were right next to the sheriff's office thing that they set up with a observation tower little thing. And it was still pretty crazy around us, but then the further away you got from that, it just got crazier. Luckily, Tactical, they quote-unquote check vehicles for firearms and that kind of stuff. I'm sure they're still there, but I didn't really see much violence there. Other than the cows. There you go. Ducks has more pictures. The cows that people saw on TV were walking back during the race at one point, and one of them just like catches eye. These are people, by the way, people in cow costumes. Catches eye with Slagathor, and he just starts going for him. And I'm like, oh, this guy, Slag's about to be raped by a cow. That's what's about to happen here. Luckily, that did not happen. But that was probably one of the most awkward encounters that happened during the moments of Sebring. And there was a lot of that kind of stuff. So yes, Sebring, this 12 hours of Sebring is a party that there happens to be some racing at. That is the summary of Sebring. All of that I could get past. I'm sure we could find a way to avoid that kind of noid. Camp somewhere else. Go to a hotel. Just go to the race. You know, don't stay overnight. Stuff like that. You could do that. But also the facility itself is very poor to watch a race. There's a ton of people. Tactical, I would say it's like a college party town with no college. So picture that. So yes, like Dux is saying, if you had a reserved RV spot and stuff like that, you could have fun. But it is also not a great place to watch a race. Like, they put some hills in some specific places that you get some really cool vantage points of it. But overall, you never get to see a whole lot of the track. And there's tons of the track you can't see at all. Like, you would love to be watching them on the backstretch and in turn 17. Very poor viewing down there. There's zero viewing in the front stretch or the start-finish line, unless you're a rich person. There's no grandstands at the start-finish or anything like that. There's basically no grandstands anywhere. So, beyond the fact that it's a weird environment, it's also just not a great place to watch a race. Road Atlanta, I think, even though you can't get everywhere at Road Atlanta, there's such awesome sight lines there because of the hills, it makes it worth it. Versus Sebring, I can't think of any spots that I was like, yeah, what a great place to just sit and watch a race. Or Daytona, you go sit in the grandstand somewhere and just chill for a while and watch the race. There's nowhere to do that so much here. Well, I've never been to COTA, so I can't compare it, but COTA is probably a great place to watch a race too. I don't know. I don't know. Dux is saying VIR is the best place. Possibly so. Never been there, personally. But that's kind of my summary of Sebring. I'm very glad that I went. I got to experience the 12 hours of Sebring. And maybe this event will be changing now that IMSA owns the track and it's not privately owned. Who knows? Who knows? But as far as it goes for right now, that's probably the only time I want to go to the 12 hours of Sebring. If you love to party, go to the 12 hours of Sebring. You'll probably have a fantastic time. But that was about it. That's, I think we'll end, maybe I'll have more thoughts on this later, but I think we'll end my thoughts of Sebring there. As far as the racing and stuff go, there was no Camaros in the Conti race, Tactical. I didn't see any Camaros there, nor did Stevenson seem to have them out. The normal cars were in the Conti race. Unless maybe they exploded by the time we got to that race, I'm not sure. The race itself was pretty good. It was a pretty great race. The classes were very close. There was a lot of good battles. So that's nice. Hold on, I need a drink. There's so much. I'm starting to think I should just clip this off of Beam and like put this on YouTube. This is the first time that I watched I've seen the DPIs. They're just as cool, I think, as the prototypes were, the Daytona prototypes. They're like LMP2 cars, because they are. They're not super exciting looking to me. The Mazda is pretty good looking. The Nissan, I think, was the best looking in person. They're all... The Cadillacs sound real dull. I was expecting them to have like that real thump. But they don't. They really don't. The cool sounding ones to me were the Gibson ones. The regular LMP2 cars, because they have a real visceral kind of sound. They're very poppy on the shifts and things like that. I like that part of it. The lack of 911s anymore in IMSA has really reduced the overall sound levels. Let's see here. PC cars didn't wreck all the time because they have traction control now, and there's only 4 of them. There's very few cautions in that race, only 6. That's unusual for modern IMSA. Overall, race cars are getting quieter. I've noticed that this is like the 11th year that I've really been going to sports car racing, and it's gotten quieter every year, and it continues to get quieter, and I do think that kind of hurts the experience a little bit. As much as NASCAR is talking about lowering the sound, which I kind of understand, because that's just like one sound, it's just a continuous sound. The sports car experience of loud cars is definitely much better. Even the C7R, which is loud, it's not like that real super high-pitched, loud, like screaming sound that used to be the old Porsches. Or the RX-8s, or... Yeah, I've seen Top Fuel cars. It's just, I think, the cool part about hearing sports cars sound is that it's not just that constant sound. It's not like oval racing where it's just that... There's, you hear them accelerating. You hear the sound of the intake. The Lambos are not very loud either, in my opinion. They're moderately loud, but not super loud. Not 911 loud at all. When you hear them throttle modulation over bumps and things like that. That kind of noise is great. I love hearing that stuff. I love hearing the different pitches as they go through turns and things like that. Accelerating down the straightaway or down the brakes, going through the gears. And that whole atmosphere seems to be kind of going away, or maybe it's just changing. I don't know. One of the things that I think could be contributing that is the fact that they're limiting cars so much with air restrictors now that it doesn't make sense to high rev anymore. So all of the cars are shifting super early. All the turbo cars shift at like 5,000 RPM, and they shift 6 times in one turn to stay in that 1,000 RPM window that they were making power, versus like the old 935 Porsches that were turbocharged. You'd hear them wailing out to like 8 grand and holding that gear for very long because they want to stay in boost and things like that. So you're losing that effect too because they're only using 1,000 RPM stretches per gear. I don't think it's a muffler issue. I don't think they're muffling the sound. I think it's the overall restriction on keeping the cars from getting faster that's doing it. All right, well, it's getting late. There's my thoughts for Sebring in a nutshell. And now we will get started with bingo. I'm sure I'll be sharing thoughts as we go. Obe is running behind. Is he... 4GT. Worst sounding race car I've ever heard. Gonna put that out there right now. I've never heard a car that sounds worse than the new 4GT. Awful. Awful sound. If given the chance, would you go to Sebring again? Only for a non-12-hour race. I'm too much of an old man inside. I was born old, I've said that many times before, to really enjoy that atmosphere. that whole party atmosphere, so I just don't. Yeah, they sound bad on TV, but somehow they sound far worse in person, which is amazing. The Gibsons sound way better in person than the TV, and they sound much better than, say, the Cadillacs, I think. Personal taste. Sure, some people love that thumping sound of the Cadillacs, but... maybe with a reserved RV spot. Maybe. Maybe that way I would be content with going again. Right. There's so many other places I'd like to go. And Dux, you should really have Barber on your list of places to go, because Barber was amazing. That's probably the best spectator track I've ever seen, and it's probably the nicest facility I've ever seen. I've never seen... that track is a national park. That's not even a racetrack. I haven't heard back from Obe yet, so we're going to continue. Oh, he's in Bingo Night. Never mind. I guess we're ready.